Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 469 this week. My name is David, and this time I'm going to pass it to Dave because it's episode 469. Dave from the UK, what's up, man?
Everything's so nice this week. So nice.
We've been waiting 100 episodes for another 69 to show up. Welcome to the podcast, Dave. Andi from Germany, how are you doing?
We're all fucking children. I'm doing well.
You love us for it, Andy.
I'm old and tired and hurt, and I work with fucking children. It was not the direct quote, but you know what I'm talking about.
And this week we are joined by a very special guest, our friend Elio. Elio, what's up, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going. You can say your last name if you want. I didn't want to throw it out there, and in case you were keeping that private, but I didn't want to.
We'll do first name in case a student finds me and does all that fantastic stuff.
If anyone's confused, it's the Elio from the Pixar films, the half man, half fish boy. I've never seen the movie. I don't know what he is.
Yeah,
exactly.
I have one eye.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Elio, you've been kind of intertwined with the DNA of the show in various forms over the years. In fact, before we started recording, you mentioned fan-off days and hearing Dave, which I don't think I even remembered. So yeah, how did, I guess maybe for anyone who's listening, as much as you want to divulge, how did you come to find us? What's your journey to this point where now you're recording on the show?
Oh man.
Did you just turn into a dog?
That's my dog. I apologize.
I am now your dog. What happened? I was probably when I was 13 years old, I discovered podcasts, and one of the first podcasts I ever listened to was Rockbuster Radio. And It was fan off, so Dave Roberts was a character on that show, or the fan off like grand scheme of things. And I remember maybe after listening to RBR for like 100 episodes or something like that, Will, the old host and the owner of Fan Off, mentioned that there was a horror podcast, and I was obsessed with horror movies at the time, so I started listening. I think the first one I listened to was what was that Australian movie with the girl that poured bleach down the guy's throat? It was the prom
The Loved
night.
Ones? I love
The
that
Loved
movie.
Ones. That was the first episode I listened to.
Nice. Sweet. Okay, cool. So yeah, you've been in the mix for quite a long time. And then I'm pretty sure, but don't want to assume, that Andi, you have met Elio in person at some point?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. When we traveled the world in 2019, Elio asked if we were anywhere near his home during that time. So we met up in Brooklyn. Elio took us out to cheese boats.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds amazing.
Yeah. Elio can explain to you. That's David. You might remember that was the place they had the signed Bone Tomahawk one sheet hanging in the restaurant.
Ooh,
signed by Saller and several of the actors.
Yeah, it was the weirdest restaurant. It was a TikTok, or not TikTok wasn't a thing yet. It was an Instagram restaurant, or maybe a Vine restaurant. Who knows?
Yeah.
It basically, it's a Georgian restaurant from the country of Georgia, not the state. And their signature dish is a cheese boat, which is basically, think like a Panera bread bowl filled with molten cheese and an egg.
I mean, it sounds amazing.
It sounds like
fondue where you eat the plate. Basically, you rip off the bread, and that thing has an actual name, not cheese boat in where it's from in Georgia.
Sure.
But I forgot what it's called. I had not encountered it before Elio took us there, and we've been talking about those things ever since for the past 6 years. We've seen them around now in other cities, that there are Georgian restaurants who offer these things, but we haven't
there's
had one yet since then.
I don't live in the city proper. I live in like a county that's like 25 minutes out of New York City, and there's a restaurant that opened up by us that serves the same thing, which is convenient, but it's not as good as the Brooklyn one.
Mm. Yeah, that's the authenticity, I guess, that happens there. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, along the the same line of bread related items. Longtime listeners of the show will also know that we used to christen, and also maybe you self-christened, I don't know why I'm on this word, yourself with various pastry/pro wrestling related nicknames. It was usually a meld of the two. I think, and I could be wrong, the OG was Wrestle Flapjack.
Yes, it was.
Okay. There were just so many after that.
My favorite is still the one that Dave came up with, and I was so jealous that it wasn't my idea. Brutus the Barber Cheesecake.
Yeah, that's good.
I had a whole list of them that I came up with, and I just had them written out and waiting for me. And every week I would just bust a new one out.
Well, we're super excited to have you on, man. It's weird, like between your and I'm gonna have you kind of give a quick little spiel here in a second too. But between just emails and music, your band, everything else, it feels like even though Dave and I have never met you in person, it feels like we have in a lot of ways. I don't want to speak for Dave, but I assume you feel the same way.
Absolutely,
this is a common podcasting thing. And we were talking before we started recording about how surreal it is when you are interacting with people that you have only heard for so long, and like that happened to me again this year. I've only met Dave in person twice, and so I'd hung out with him the first time a bunch, and then the second time still there's that weird moment of just like, you should only be in my ears, not in front of me. Like I'm hugging you now, and this is so odd that there's a physical manifestation of this podcasting voice. So
it's not even that we're not in the same place. We don't even see each other because we're recording without video.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point too. Really quick, Elio, we'll do this at the end too, but if you want to, I don't know, I don't want to put you totally on the spot here, but maybe like, it doesn't have to be your top 5 favorite horror movies, but like what are a handful that come to mind that are like your go-tos, so people kind of have just a very, very brief frame of reference for like the kind of horror fan that you are?
Oh, definitely. Tremors is my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, boy.
Amazing.
I actually, sorry, I'm fighting a cold. Being a high school teacher kind of just destroys your immune system.
Sure.
But, so Tremors is my favorite movie of all time. You guys actually did an episode on Tremors because Andi asked, what did I want to hear after he came to visit in Brooklyn? And I said Tremors. And
Nice.
I'm trying to think. So Tremors, Friday the 13th is up there. That's like one of my favorite franchises. I don't think it's necessarily good, but it's enjoyable.
Do you have a favorite in the franchise?
Oh man, that's hard. I feel like 2 is the only legitimately good one, like actually good, but I really like 3. 7 is really good. I don't know. Like even X is just really fun to watch. Like I really do enjoy Jason X. Like I think that's a great movie. I'm trying to think what else top 5. So Tremors, Nightmare, or I'm sorry, Friday. Trying to think I watch so much that I'm like,
Yeah, I knew when I asked, I was like, I know I'm putting you on the spot because we've all been in this hot seat, and your mind just kind of clears out, even though you have a million answers for it.
Yeah, exactly. The Alien franchise is up there. I do enjoy those.
Nice.
Which people argue if it's a horror franchise or not.
Not here.
Scream. Scream also, even though that's another one that I love the first 3. I actually love the first 4 because the 4th one was the first one I got to see in theaters. And I liked 5 and 6 when I saw them initially, but now that I'm thinking about them, I'm like, oh, those might be bad movies.
Right. Yeah, man, it's so funny, the Friday thing that you mentioned and all these franchise things. My son went as Michael Myers for Halloween this year, and he was asking me, like, while we were trick-or-treating, like, what would Michael Myers say? How would he walk? What would he do? And I finally had to be like, kid, I don't want to burst your bubble, but it's a dude. Like he doesn't talk. He walks around. I was like, I think probably you're going to be more into like Freddy and Jason and like some of these, maybe more so Freddy. But then he was asking me the same thing about Friday the 13th and Halloween, where it was like, how many of them are good? And I was like, very few, but but they're also kind of all awesome in their own ways. Like, and I mentioned that about Friday too. I was like, I think that one might be the best one, like in terms of a legitimate, but he was like, well, which one's your favorite? I was like, 4. Like everybody has a different favorite, even though it's not maybe necessarily the best. So yeah, that all resonates for sure.
I actually have, not to cut you off. It's funny.
No, go for it.
I have a horror group chat with me and 2 friends of mine that we recently made. And that was like a conversation we had for about like 2 days now, which is like, which franchise is the worst one out of Nightmare, Friday, and Halloween, and we all disagreed on which ones we said. Like one of them was arguing that Friday was the worst one, and I was very offended by that. And then I think we settled on Halloween being the worst franchise out of all of them, but who knows?
And it's tough because like I could absolutely see, for the most part, any argument in terms of like someone vying for the three in those. But and Halloween makes sense to me. But then there's also the part of me that's like, but the first one's Halloween, which is for me maybe the like top three greatest horror movies of all time. Like it's so hard to be like, do we discount the whole thing because of the but I mean, yeah, there's some dumb bullshit.
The argument's about franchises, isn't it?
Right.
So if you average out,
that's what makes it hard.
Yeah, you average out all of the Halloween movies, the Nightmare movies, and the Friday the 13th movies, and then you're just like, okay, so which one is worse? And my gut told me that probably it was Halloween as well. So I don't know.
But Halloween 3 is so good. I think we can't go down this rabbit
hole. But I don't count Halloween 3 as being part of the franchise. That's the thing.
Well, it's the third. It's got a 3. See, we can't do this.
Elio, also have to think about the reboots if you talk about the franchise. You can't just go with the original series. You have to talk about Zombie. You have to talk about David Gordon Green.
Yep.
And I'll stand behind that Friday the 13th reboot from 2009. That's a solid movie.
I like that. Was one of it. Might have been honestly the spectacular.
And this is what you mean.
That was the first one that I saw of the franchise. I'm pretty sure. I had a weird entry point into all. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, all of them were the reboots that I saw first. I saw the Rob Zombie Halloween movie before I saw any of the other ones. Same for Friday the 13th, and then same for the really bad Nightmare on Elm Street reboot. Those were my first entry points. So I guess in a lot of ways, other than the Friday the 13th one, that they all kind of went uphill from there. I'm not a huge fan of the first Rob Zombie Halloween remake, but I do like the second one. Anyway, what the fuck is going on? Elio, welcome to the show. For anyone who's never listened to the podcast before, we are a horror podcast that talks about tons of horror-related items. I just remembered I was going to have you plug your band too, Elio. Can you give a shout-out to that just so it's on people's minds, and then we'll circle back to it at the end?
Yeah, definitely. I play in 3 bands. One of them or 2 of them have albums out. The third one, we're on our way. The album's done, but we're kind of waiting on if we want to make TikTok videos and all. I'm simply cannot be bothered with TikTok, but the other member of that band is really serious about it, so we'll see. So I play guitar and sing in a band called Knife Throat. We're like an emo folk band based here out of New York. We just put out a full length earlier this year. What's the name of the full length? Sad Blue Planet, which is the name of the full length. We play shows pretty frequently. Listen to us on all streaming platforms. I also play guitar in a band called God's Favorite. We're a hardcore band, also based out of New York. I'm in that band with my partner, and it's fun. It's fighting music. People just beat each other up at all our shows, which is also good. And then the other band, which this will be relevant probably in a couple of months, I play guitar in a band called We're in Our 30s, which is a band all about being in your 30s. We're a pop punk band. We sing songs about things you should do in your 30s, like mowing the lawn, flossing your teeth so the dentist doesn't yell at you. And then I wrote a song about writing a will, which everyone said was depressing, but that's who I am.
No, I can get behind that. I like that. Cool. Awesome. All right. Yeah, we'll have you plug it at the end as well. We're fans of your bands, and we've talked about them in the past on the show, so I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to plug them as well. All right. So what else? We download us, subscribe, blah blah blah. We're on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. If you want to send us some longer form thoughts, you can do so via email, eerieinternational@gmail.com. Andi, am I forgetting anything? I heard a little bit of a noise. I'm assuming it was a no. Okay.
I don't know why it is that always my sound seems to cut out when I answer one of your questions. I have no idea. But I said nope.
Okay, cool. I also haven't been on the show for a few weeks, so I know I'm all over the place right now. Okay, let's get into what we have been into for the past week or so on the horror spectrum of things. Elio, do you have anything? If so, we'll let you go first. You're the guest of honor. If you don't, totally okay. We don't want to put you on the spot.
I have so much. It's so bad.
All right, let's do it. Let's get into it.
I like purposely once I messaged you and was like, hey, can I be on the show? And you said yes, of course. I was like, all right, let me watch and listen to a lot of horror. So in terms of movies that are currently out, I saw Black Phone 2, which was fine.
I saw that too.
Yeah, I liked the first one, and my apologies if you talked about it on a previous episode, but like,
no, I haven't yet. So yeah, I might tag in with you on this. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll, long and short of it, it's a decent movie. Some of the dialogue's really bad. I was like shocked with how bad some of the conversations between the characters were. But this movie reminded me a lot more of Nightmare on Elm Street than anything else, which I enjoyed.
Me too.
I got into like an argument on Reddit with someone, which is the dumbest thing to do. But the way I looked at it is like Black Phone 1 is like the Nightmare prequel where Freddy's still just like a creepy pedophile dude. And then Black Phone 2 is when he gets the supernatural spooky powers. But I liked it. Trying to think what else I watched and listened to. I listened to a couple audiobooks this previous 2 weeks. I listened to The Fisherman by John Langdon. It's my second time reading it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then I listened to The Exorcist, which I highly recommend because that's like the author reads it, and he's like a 100-year-old man, so it's very creepy and spooky while he reads. And then in terms of movies, I'm pulling up my Letterboxd right now because you all know I'm a big Letterboxd guy.
I would say, you know what? As you pull it up, I'm going to find you so I can plug yours for people to follow you.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. Let's see. Okay, I watched Bring Her Back, but that was a while ago. But that was awesome. That's my favorite movie of the year, horror wise.
And you and I have watched some similar stuff in the back. I watched that for the first time. It's also on my list to talk about.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about it more because but I thought it was great. I thought just sort of grief and horror and everything was sick. This is not horror. Well, it's kind of horror. The Chainsaw Man movie. There's a lot of chainsaws and a bunch of people getting cut into
body
pieces.
Horror. Yeah.
The man turns into a chainsaw, which was cool. And then reading wise, oh boy, you guys know I'm an avid reader as the English teacher in the group right now. I guess I'll talk about this a little bit because it was pretty interesting. Y'all ever hear of Hack and Slash?
Yes, the comic book.
Yeah, I started reading that. I bought. I went to a local comic book shop, or not really comic book shop. They were like a toy and oddities shop, and they just have like a bunch of omnibuy sitting on a shelf. And I bought the first Hack and Slash volume because I've always been interested in it. And the guy was like, "Hey, I'll sell you the other two for like $30 total. So $3 for $30 is pretty good." And so I got all three and I burned through it. It's like pretty solid. It's not revolutionary, but it's like pretty decent slasher stuff, and lots of blood, lots of gore, lots of boobs. It's kind of fun read. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about that I thought was fun and worth a watch is Welcome to Derry, the new HBO show.
On my list. Yeah.
Did you watch it yet?
I have not watched any. So I canceled all of my subscriptions a while back, so I don't have like immediate quick access to it. But I have friends who still have HBO that I need to hit up and be like, "Hey, can I use your account to watch it?" But it was kind of not on. It was on my radar. I knew they were making it, but I think I kind of preemptively was just like, I liked the chapter 1 a lot. I didn't like the second one all that much, and so I was like not all that interested. And then when the first episode came out, I won't spoil anything about it. I haven't even seen it, but I heard a lot of people talking about how crazy it was and how interesting what they were doing, blah, blah, blah. And then it became much more of a thing where I was like, oh, maybe there's more to this than just like kind of a cash in to do another Pennywise thing. So I've heard good things.
Without spoiling anything, like, I agree with you totally. The first It movie, the remake, was great. Second one was pretty bad. And then this prequel, I didn't really expect much with it, but I'm like a big proponent of the fact that horror movies horror things don't necessarily have to be revolutionary or like life altering. They can just be solid and fun affairs, and that's how I feel about this whole TV show. It's like bloody, gory, surprising. They take some pretty wild swings in the first episode. I haven't watched episode 2 or 3, but the first episode really hooked me, so I'm pretty excited for the rest of it. But that's all I've been watching and reading and consuming.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, a lot of good stuff there, and stuff I'll tag up on when I go through mine. Are you okay with me throwing your Letterboxd profile out there for people to follow?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. It's Evezza. That's how you spell it. Evezza. And I highly recommend you give Elio a follow on Letterboxd. I am also an avid Letterboxd user. Honestly, it's probably the only, if you would call it a social media, quote unquote social media, that I use at this point. Like regularly, I get on it every day. I see what people are watching. Like I'm super and I love following and reading your reviews. So highly recommend everyone else does as well. Cool. Okay, let's pivot here to Andi. What did you get into?
Right, I have a pretty long list, and some of these things are from some weeks in the past because we skipped a weekend. So I will try not to talk too long about most of these things, but I still want to mention them. So I watched a documentary called The Sci-Fi Boys. I think that documentary is roughly 20 years old. And it is about the history of, the Sci-Fi Boys, meaning Forry Ackerman, who founded Famous Monsters of Finland, Ray Harryhausen, and you have your usual suspects in it, like Peter Jackson and Joe Dante, and many of those people talking about the early sci-fi monster movies, Roger Corman, and all that stuff. And as I told you...
Mick Garris has got to be in this. Mick Garris?
I don't think Mick Garris is in it. No.
His acting career must have taken off. He's not in documentaries anymore.
As I said,
I'll stop talking shit.
He will come up again on my list. So what was I about to say before you interrupted me so rudely? As Sci-Fi I said, Boys. Over the past few episodes, I'm currently in a monster movie mania, and all I'm taking in is podcasts and movies and documentaries about monster movies, about makeup effects and all that stuff. So, Sci-Fi Boys, that was one. Two podcasts that I want to mention that I don't think in the usual horror circles are on people's radars, but if you are interested in old-timey monster and sci-fi movies, Universal Monsters, and anything from the 50s, Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. Of course, Gilbert Gottfried has been dead for a while, for some years, but he started his podcast in 2014. That guy was such a monster kid, such a fan of early American monster movies. If you want to know about that era of Universal horror movies, listen to that podcast. Find those episodes. That guy interviewed the children of Boris Karloff, of Bela Lugosi, of Lon Chaney Jr., of Vincent Price. People that you never hear on any of your regular horror movie podcasts. Gilbert Gottfried had those people on. And then, of course, Rick Baker, Dennis Muren, anyone who's interested or has a career in monster movies has been on that podcast. So definitely worth checking out if you're interested in that. The Dana Gould Hour. Dana Gould, not only a big Planet of the Apes guy, but just generally big monster movie guy, sci-fi movie guy, and talks to those people. He doesn't necessarily talk to children of Bela Lugosi, but all the makeup effects guys and people from the industry. So those podcasts don't come up in the horror category on your podcatcher because they also talk about other things and talk to other people, but they have some great episodes regarding the horror history of horror. I said Mick Garris would come up. Post-Mortem released another episode after a year or two because it's a live recording from Fantastic Fest, and Fantastic Fest had its 20th anniversary, and so did the Masters of Horror TV series. So they did a live talk, Joe Dante, Mick Garris, Ernest Dickerson, I believe, and now I'm blanking on the fourth one. So 4 directors that were involved with the original Masters of Horror, and they did a 20th anniversary talk on stage at Fantastic Fest. You can find a video of it on YouTube, and Post-Mortem with Mick Garris released it as an audio recording. So if you're interested in Masters of Horror, again, recommendation. So finally, we're going to do a movie. I watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the latest in the Planet of the Apes franchise, the fourth in the current timeline, the first in the new trilogy, which it supposedly will become a new trilogy. And I really liked it. I thought it was very good. This one takes place hundreds of years after war for the Planet of the Apes. So totally new setup, no characters, new generations of apes, but still in that timeline, in that world. So the other movies are referenced, the characters from that movie are referenced, but now we're seeing where has it all led, how did the ape society develop, what's happening with human beings, and I thought it was a great adventure movie, and I'm absolutely up for more in this world. I can only reiterate, when I first heard about the first remake in that series, not the Tim Burton movie, but when they came out with that new movie, because I'm such a fan of the original movies, I thought it was the dumbest idea to remake Planet of the Apes, and then I was so wrong. I really liked that first movie, and now I've seen 4 of these new movies. There's one that I didn't like as much as everyone else did, but I think it's a great series that stands on its own, separate from the original Planet of the Apes movies, and absolutely worth watching. I watched Michael Jackson's Thriller because Rick Baker. Forey Ackerman is also in that video, as I found out watching it. Speaking of Rick Baker and Planet of the Apes, I watched the documentary Making Apes, The Artists Who Changed Film, a documentary about John Chambers, the makeup effects guy on the original Planet of the Apes movie, who was played by John Goodman in the movie Argo, because he also worked for the CIA and not only for Hollywood. And his apprentice, Tom Berman. So Tom Berman is actually the guy that initiated this documentary, because he wanted to tell that story of himself, of his mentor, John Chambers, and all the other makeup effects people that worked on Planet of the Apes, and how that movie changed makeup effects in movie history. And it's a great documentary. John Chambers not alive anymore. It's a very heartfelt documentary. John Chambers was not an easy guy. Their relationship had more than one bump in the road, and they weren't always on good terms. And again, you have all your regulars in that documentary that you would think would talk about Planet of the Apes. John Landis, of course, he worked on Planet of the Apes, not on the first one, but on other movies in that series. And again, Dana Gould and Rick Baker and all these people. So Making Apes, if you're interested in Planet of the Apes and in makeup effects, great documentary. Then I watched Del Toro's Frankenstein at the cinema. I'm not going to talk about it because we will do an episode on it next week. Then Edgar Wright is currently promoting The Running Man, so he was on the Pure Cinema podcast again. You might remember that we have referenced his appearance on Pure Cinema when he recommended underrated British horror several times. We did a whole series on that thing. Now he was on Pure Cinema to talk about Stephen King movies. This time it was not him making a list, it was all 3 of them. So Elric Kane, Brian Sauer, and Edgar Wright. Each of them brought 3 movies, 3 Stephen King adaptations to the table, and they just talk about these 9 movies. Edgar Wright is always a pleasure on podcasts. So Pure Cinema podcast, Stephen King movies with Edgar Wright, just from, like, I don't know, this week or the week before. So very current. Last thing on my list, I watched Predator Badlands at the cinema, my movie of the year. And I know that Dave has seen it. David will see it today, is my understanding. Yeah. So I'm not going to talk about too much about the movie. That's also, Dave and I talked a little bit before we started recording about the movie, and because I said I want to talk about Predator Badlands more next week when we talk about Frankenstein, because I have things to say about Badlands and Frankenstein in connection to each other. So not going to talk too much about it, but I can say I love the movie. So far, it's my movie of the year that I've seen at the cinema. And with that, I can segue to Dave, because he has seen Badlands too. So, Dave, what's your take?
Are you muted,
Dave's
Dave?
Still here.
He maybe stepped away.
Yeah, I muted myself. Well done, Dave. Rookie mistake. So I saw Badlands yesterday. I went to a screening, which was marked by View Cinemas as a special screening because you got like a commemorative gift. And I did get a commemorative gift, a series of 5 art cards, movie posters, maybe you could call them. They're like A5 size. I'll post them in the chat in a minute. But they're very nice looking.
They're like, weren't they called lobby? Fuck, what were those things called? Lobby cards or something?
Lobby cards, maybe, yeah. They used
had a thing,
to.
yeah. I was going to say, it was a thing they used to do back in the day.
Yeah, so maybe it's a return to that. I remember they used to do postcards. That doubled up as kind of lobby cards or whatever you would call them. So maybe that's what they are. I don't know. They were calling them postcards as they were giving them away to us. And apparently there were View managers on Reddit who didn't know that this was a thing because I saw it marked as being like a special screening with whatever word that it was they used, commemorative or whatever, souvenir, I think they said. And immediately searched for it because I was like, what does this mean? And there was someone on Reddit that was like, look, I'm a manager at View Cinemas. I haven't got a clue what this means. So it was very last minute, apparently. We don't get special popcorn buckets in the UK, as best as I know. We get bits of card. But they are very pretty bits of card, which I will be sharing with everybody. I'll talk about it more next week. I was surprised to see that it was a 12A. I didn't realise that until I saw everyone else piling into the cinema and there was a bunch of kids and I was like, that seems like a very young group of children for a movie that is, I hope, going to be as violent as this movie will be. And then it turned out that actually, it's a 12A, which is the PG-13 equivalent in the US. It's the same idea. 12 and older, you can go in without any problems. Any younger than that, you need a parent with you, or an adult at least. So that would explain why there was a lot of young families there. And in fairness, they make it work because of the fact that there aren't, spoilers, there aren't any human beings in this movie whatsoever. It's all synths and predators and or Yautja, because we've claimed that word now, thanks to Dan Trachtenberg. And the monsters that live on a particular planet whose name I can't remember right now. But it's a really fun film, and we will talk about it a lot more next week, I promise. Also, something we'll talk about a lot next week is Frankenstein, because I watched that when I got home. I did want to watch it in cinemas, but I'm very well known for wanting to watch something in cinemas and then prevaricating around the bushel until the point that it's no longer available easily. And that was the case for me. I basically waited long enough that the only place that was local to me that I could see it was like Everyman Cinema, which is a place where you basically rent out a couch and they'll bring you food and drinks and they'll charge you mortgage-worthy prices for the benefit of doing that. So it wasn't within my budget to go and watch it at the Everyman, unfortunately, as much as I love that cinema when I have been able to go there. So I saw it on Netflix, and it's a very good film, and we shall talk more about it next week, of course. What else did I see? I saw a few episodes of Once Upon a Time. I don't think it was Disney that made it, but they certainly have ownership of it now because it's on Disney Plus. I think it's like an HBO show or something like that. I can't quite remember, but it leans heavily into the Disney-fied version of characters in the later seasons. Early on, there was real promise for it, that you had like a character called Ruby who was Little Red Riding Hood, who not only was Little Red Riding Hood but was also a werewolf. And they went full bore with the whole werewolf thing, like she was eating people. But now it's all like fucking Elsa and, you know, the Frozen universe. And in fairness, it was quite cute when I saw the rock trolls looking exactly as they did in the Disney movie, but in live action CG. But yeah, it's all just very Disney now, unfortunately. And like Peter Pan is a bad guy. I don't understand that. But where it does work very well is that occasionally they won't pull their punches and they'll go fairly horror-coded with their episodes. And there have been some very decent, I would say, episodes where they've lent into a more horror vibe. Later on, for example, they have to go to the underworld and Hades is there. Of course he is. And they don't have... I forget the guy, the name that voiced him in Hercules.
James Woods.
Yes, thank you, David. James Woods is not playing Hades in this. In fact, instead, they decided that they were going to take one of the guys off of Ally McBeal and have him play him instead. Again, name's not a strong point, especially for TV shows I've not seen in 20 plus fucking years. So I can't remember who it was from Ally McBeal. But yeah, there's some Cerberus shit in there, and there's some reasonable horror stuff that you get to play out in that TV show. Last week, I went to watch Begonia, which we talked about very briefly on the show before. It's Yorgos Lanthimos' new film. I don't think I've seen any of his previous movies. I was kind of looking through his roster of films that he's directed, and I genuinely don't think that I've seen any of them, which... yeah, maybe I should fix that soon. I did want to watch Poor Things when it came out, and then, as is always the way with me, I prevaricated, and then it wasn't available anymore. So I think it might be on Netflix, so I'll have to have a look and see if it's on there. But yeah, like we had a conversation about this very briefly, because I said to you guys, I went to watch it, and I loved it. My dad thought it was awful. He thought it was really amateurish and everything like that. Now, I think I've got a theory as to why, and it's because one of the main characters in the movie is a guy who I think has learning disabilities in real life, but certainly plays a character who has some kind of learning disabilities going on with him. Yeah. And the delivery of the scenes between him and Jesse Plemons didn't necessarily feel like a polished performance, but then you won't get a polished performance when the idea is that you have a character who has learning disabilities talking to somebody else. It's not going to be like two neurotypical people having a conversation. That's not how it works. So I think that was partly it, but also like Yorgos Lanthimos takes some wild swings in terms of direction in this movie. Like there's an entire scene where Jesse Plemons is riding to work, and just the use of music and the way that it's edited is just so far removed from anything that I think I've experienced in movies in general for a long, long time. Like he finds a piece of music he wants to work with, and he's just like, right, we're going to use this. And it's this big bombastic piece of classical music, and Plemons is riding his bike along the road at the time, and tonally, it kind of comes out of nowhere, and it doesn't really fit with anything that they're doing at the time. But I loved it just because it was obvious that this was just something the director really wanted to do. And fuck it, why can't you do that in your own movie? There's a lot of humour in this film. I mean, the film is basically, for those that aren't aware, and this won't spoil anything because this is all stuff that I picked up from the trailer. It's a guy that kidnaps the CEO of a company because he thinks she's an alien, and and then a lot of the rest of the movie is him trying to get her to admit that she's an alien and whether she is or isn't an alien, and it plays a lot around with that about whether we think that she might be. And for a movie that is based around kidnapping and some amount of torture, I'm let's not be delicate about this. It's actually quite funny, and I'm not. I think that it swings from really quite funny all the way over to being really disturbing. Actually, what this guy is doing and why he's doing it, and the suffering that Emma Stone's character is going through at his hands. And you can kind of see why he justifies it the way he justifies it. They introduce stuff that makes you wonder whether he actually believes what he believes, or if he's just using it as a cover to get revenge on her for whatever reason that might be. I'm not going to say what it is because it is revealed during the movie that he does have a prior relationship with her in some way, shape or form. It's not a random kidnapping, that's for sure. It's a very good film. For me personally, I really enjoyed it. As I said, my dad wasn't a fan, so that means that it's probably going to be one of those movies that divides people. You're either going to love it or you're really not going to like it at all.
We were talking about it briefly when you messaged us, and that was kind of my my response to Lanthimos' entire filmography. I've only seen The Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Favorite, but I really liked both, but they were also both movies that I wouldn't just recommend to anyone. It would be something where I'm like, yeah, you're down for something different and something weird, and his stuff's like so intentionally done that it has there's no way for it to not be divisive, because he's not making something that's supposed to be accessible for every single general viewing audience member. But if you like this one, man, I bet you would like his other stuff. Like the Killing of a Sacred Deer is real dark, very closer to horror-y, but also same, like a lot of the stuff you described about this one applies to the ones I've seen of his, where there's moments that are insanely funny, and like he is juggling a lot of different tones, and he's an interesting dude.
Yeah, he's not to interrupt, he's like a director that I just really look forward to everything I've seen from him. I haven't seen everything, but his movie Dogtooth, which is not funny. That is not a funny movie. But I think of that movie like twice a week, and I saw it in like 2018. I think the Terror Table actually did an episode on it, which is why I watched it. But he's just, like you said, he takes wild, insane swings, and even when they don't land, you're just kind of like, oh, that was different than anything I've ever saw before.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny you mentioned Poor Things, because I liked Poor Things. I thought it was good, but that might be his most like normal movie. Everything else is just... Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's weird. Like, I watched it with my girlfriend sitting on the couch, and she's like, what the hell are you watching? But it's like, Yorgos is crazy. He thinks of stuff that I greatly appreciate but could never even think about on my own.
I love the idea of movies where you sit down and the other person that's in the room with you is like, what the hell are we watching? Like, I dig that to a degree that I am uncomfortable sharing.
You may already know this too, Dave, but did you know that Begonia is a remake of a South Korean film?
Yeah, so my dad actually messaged me before we went, and he said that he'd gone onto IMDb to find out more about it, because he had not heard about this before. And he was aware that it was based on a South Korean novel, but he didn't mention that it was a remake of another movie. So that's something
it might be a novel too that I didn't know. But yeah, the original movie's called Save the Green Planet with an exclamation point, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad they called it Begonia, because it buries the lead somewhat.
Yep.
And that's all I will say. But yeah, really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it, certainly to anyone that has watched any of Yorgos' previous movies. I think from what you guys have all said about it, this definitely falls into the ballpark of his kind of weird back catalogue. So yeah, that's definitely one for the watch pile. And then randomly, because what would it be? It wouldn't be an episode of Eerie International if I didn't talk about something that was absolutely not anything to do with horror whatsoever. I finally got around to watching The Fantastic Four: First Steps, and I think that might be the best Marvel movie that I've seen for years. Honestly.
It was for me.
Yeah, like
I liked it a lot.
The tone of it. I don't think it's just the fact that it's set in like a pseudo 50s/60s era Earth, but I think it helps for sure. I think it helps. I just got this real feeling of just like people just doing things for the sake of doing the right thing with it, and like, I don't know, there was something charming about the way that particular reality of Earth was set out, like the way everything looked, the aesthetic kind of retro futuristic look of it. I really dug, and also the fact that, like, coming off of the back of watching Thunderbolts, where the post credits scene kind of like introduced the Fantastic Four arriving on a rocket. And basically 99.9% of everyone that watched that thought to themselves, oh, well, that means they probably fail in their movie then.
That's what I was going to say, man. That was probably one of my favorite things about the movie was that, I mean, we can spoil. This is spoilers for the end of Fantastic Four. Not the entire thing, but like just the fact that they kept the world, because I was like, keep them there. Like, they can come back and forth. I'm sure Reed can invent a machine that lets them travel between dimensions, whatever else. Like,
hope so, yeah.
Like, it is. I thought it was such a smart move to not introduce that world and then wipe it clean by the end. Like, and you know, won't spoil what happens at the end, but like, I thought the exact same thing. It was like, keep that shit. Like, that's such a cool thing that you guys have built that's different than the rest of the MCU. Like, don't throw it away after one movie.
Absolutely. And like the fact that like we see all of these classic Marvel villains like the Mole Man and by the way, Paul Walter Hauser, like, standing ovation for him for playing a Mole Man and being just like funny, but also at times like I don't know. I just thought he gave a really cool performance for what was ultimately like an extended cameo.
I saw it in the theater twice, and both times the audience loses it when he says, "Don't be mad at me, Johnny. I didn't dress you." Like that is just like snarky asshole. Like it's so good.
And then the fact that we potentially get more Natasha Lyonne down the line as well. Like I'm a big fan of that. So, but yeah, just the casting of the whole movie, the Fantastica. Although it didn't separate into 4 different pieces, I'm not mad with the Fantastica that we got, because I'm fairly certain that we'll get a new version down the line along with new outfits and new everything, because that's how Marvel make their money. They sell new things every time a movie comes out. You get new action figures and new this and new that. And also the little, was his name Herbert or something like that?
Herbie.
The little Herbie, the robot.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. What a great character for a character that never has a line of dialogue that you understand. Just the little moments like when they're in the rocket and he squeezes himself into his little kind of holding area, and there's just like this little, and it was not needed at all, but this little animation moment where he just kind of rolls his shoulder into the padding to snuggle himself in. Just,
I loved all the aesthetic stuff with him. Like, he really cool. Reed at one point needs him to do different shit than what he's been doing, and he swaps out a tape in his face.
Yes,
like it's
yes,
so cool.
It's really, really cool. Yeah, just aesthetically great, tonally fantastic. It felt like the kind of superhero movie that I want to be seeing, which is much akin to what James Gunn did with Superman, where it was a very hopeful movie and a very colourful movie.
Both of them. I felt like it. We talk about horror a lot in that lens of like politically what's going on, and then responses to that, like post, Bush post 9/11, war in Iraq that had a big moment that we can see reflected. Like between this and Superman, I felt absolutely like this is a response to just how shitty the country is right now under Trump, and cruel and mean, and like having both of those films have characters where it's like it's not uncool to be kind. That's a pretty basic thing you can still have in place and be a cool person, like in a way that in both movies, to me at least, didn't feel preachy or reductive or condescending. Like, felt very authentic.
Yeah, like Vanessa Kirby has, I'm not going to say what the speech is about because that would ruin the movie for people, but she has a speech midway through the movie, and she's put in this impossible position, and she somehow manages to get people to see sense on the decisions that have been made. And it felt like a really well planned out moment. And just the whole thing is great. So please, everyone, watch that fucking film. It's great. I mean, Marvel don't need your money. Disney don't need your money, but like it's the kind of superhero movie that I want to see a lot more made going forwards, and hopefully it's a moment of correction, a course correction for Marvel, which has maybe been a little bit aimless for a few movies now. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. But anyway, that is everything for me. So David, full circle, back round to you, sir.
Alrighty, I'll go quick. I have a handful of things, but I'll just kind of bullet point them. The first thing I wanted to mention is I said earlier how I don't have access to the streaming services much anymore. I have a few. One of them's Apple TV Plus, whatever it's called, because my family has a family plan thing with Apple, or like Apple related shit. So we have the TV Plus thing streaming or whatever included. So I watched the first episode, and I'm halfway through the second of Pluribus, the new show from Vince Gilligan, creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And relevantly to bring up, if that's a word, here, also a writer on The X-Files back in the day. So this is wildly different than Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. It does have Rhea Seehorn from Better Call Saul, who I've only seen the first maybe 3 or 4 seasons of Better Call Saul, but she was one of the many highlights of that show. She's fantastic. And so Vince Gilligan had this idea for this show for a long time, rattling around, and it changed and evolved at times. But then eventually he realized, I want to write this show for her. So it's kind of built for Seahorn's performance, and at least in the first episode and a half that I've watched so far, she crushes it. She's so good in it. But it is, Wikipedia describes it as a post-apocalyptic science fiction psychological thriller, and I would say that that's pretty accurate. The marketing's been very careful before it's come out. I've watched all the trailers and spots and poster, all the stuff they've done. So I was really excited about it, but they've also been pretty careful in not revealing. Now that it's out, I'll reveal a little bit. So if you're worried about spoilers and want to go in totally blind, maybe skip forward 30 seconds or so. But there is a extraterrestrial virus sort of deal that ends up infecting the entire planet, minus a handful of people. That's a minor spoiler, but I won't say exactly how many. And Rhea Seehorn's character is she's a fantasy, like a romantasy author named Carol Sturka, and she's one of them, and one of the people that it doesn't affect, that's immune. And essentially it puts them into this high, like everyone that gets infected, which is again like almost the entire planet minus a handful of people. If they don't die, which some of them do, whether it's like injuries sustained when they get infected because they like go into like a seizure sort of thing. If they survive, they then are this hive mind that's all connected, and they're all creepily, like pod people-y, sort of optimistic and happy. And so Sturka, her character, she is not. She immediately can see like this isn't okay and normal, and so they're trying to figure out the others, the people in this hive mind, which is again the entire planet essentially, are trying to figure out how they can then infect her and the last few people. So that's how the show starts, essentially. It has like if you like Vince Gilligan, it has all of the hallmarks of his visual style, directing, writing. It's in Albuquerque again. It's not connected to Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or any of that stuff. There's no shared universe going on. It's brand new. But yeah, man, it's really good. I'm really into it. It's very creepy. It's not straight up horror necessarily. I think kind of similarly to Gilligan's other stuff, there's definitely moments of humor. Sometimes it's dark. Sometimes it's just kind of, absurdist sort of situations that are funny and performances and whatnot. But it's one of those things similar to Severance in some ways, which is also on Apple, that I am just like so excited to see how this unfolds and where the world goes. It's not a brand new original idea. Like we've seen hive mind pod people type stuff before. But at least for me, there have been moments already in the first episode and a half where I've been like, oh shit, I didn't think about the implications and the possibilities that are going to exist because of this hive mind thing and the way that they talk and communicate, because anyone she talks to has the experiences, memories, everything of every person on the planet that has survived or that was connected before they survived or before they died. So it's this very like, I don't know. There were a lot of stuff. I saw an interview with Vince Gilligan where he was talking about one of the regrets he had, I'm paraphrasing, with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul was that he would tried to react or maybe not necessarily correct viewers' interpretations, but would comment on them. And he said that now he's following advice that Michael Mann gave him like 20 plus years ago, which was just write a good story. The audience's job is to figure out the themes and to worry about that stuff. It's not yours to worry about. So he hasn't really commented on, what there might be commentary on, but holy shit, dude. There multiple times I've been watching it where I'm just like, this feels terrifyingly familiar with either, again, like Trump era stuff, or AI has been a big one I've picked up on a lot, where it's this the proliferation of AI and how widespread it is and how it eliminates personality and individual, taste and opinions and everything else. So anyway, really into it so far. I like it quite a bit. It is an Apple TV Plus whatever exclusive, so you have to watch it on that. So if you don't have it and don't care about anything else on the streaming service, I would say get a free trial when the season is over and binge it. But I'm assuming it'll stay consistent. It's been awesome so far. As I mentioned before, also watch Black Phone 2. Elio, I have a theory on this because you mentioned the writing. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I I like Cargill and Scott Derrickson's writing, like in Doctor Strange and Sinister, the first Black Phone. Honestly, even in this Black Phone, I do too. But it was this movie that made me realize something that I think, at least for me, I might have cracked the code. Because Derrickson is a guy who we've put him in the same category as that other motherfucker. I can never remember his name. Andi, Repo the Genetic Opera. What's his name?
Darren Lynn Bousman.
Darren Lynn Bousman. Can never remember his name. Another filmmaker who I really like a lot, but I don't always love his movies. I like listening to him talk. I like his perspectives, but the movies usually I don't connect with as much as I connect with listening to that person talk about, their craft and everything else. And so I think I've landed on what it is for me. I think, and I hope Scott Derrickson never hears this because I'm mildly talking shit and I don't mean to. But I think that one of his weaknesses is directing performances, because there are moments in this Black Phone and in the prior Black Phone, which I had rewatched not too long ago, or we did it on the show. That's why, that there are actors in it who have moments where you're like, oh shit, you're amazing. Like you just you nailed that scene, whatever else. And then they have other moments where you're like, was that the only fucking take? Like what happened there? And it then I think makes the writing seem weaker, at least for me. Like it's moments where, because the delivery isn't good or is odd or stilted or whatever, it then makes some of the dialogue that seem that much cheesier, because there also is the whole thing in both movies where it's like period pieces. Like, well, the first one was like late 70s. This one's early 80s. So there's some, if you can't nail an authenticity when you say words like, oh, that's mint, or, whatever slang, it feels odd. And it makes the writing feel cheesy and weak. I don't know. But that was what I landed on this time, where I was like, I think sometimes it's just not one of, I think like he has strengths as a director visually, and the way he's like, especially the aesthetic, like that they basically pull from Sinister in this movie with like the old, like the dreams that she has. Looks awesome. Like that's like, not Super 8, but like the 8mm film, whatever millimeter. But there are moments for all of the characters where I'm just like, how is this the same actor in this one movie? Like you were so good in this scene, and then in this scene it's so awkward and weird. Anyway, that's my little theory. Does that sound right to you, or are you like, no, that's bullshit?
No, I totally agree with you, because that's literally like, I'm not. Like, trust me, I'm not hard to impress, and I don't hold people to like extreme standards,
sure,
especially with horror. But this was the only movie in recent history where I was just like in the middle of watching the movie, and they would say a line and I'd be like, what the hell just happened? What was that? Like,
yeah.
And don't get me, like, I like that main actor. Well, I guess he took a step back in this movie, but Finn, the guy who was in the How to Train Your Dragon movie, I like him. I think he's a solid actor, but there is just some dialogue between him and his sister in this movie where I'm in the middle of the movie theater and I'm like looking around. I'm like, is anyone else getting that this is just the same awful thing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And it's, I think the positive stuff for me was definitely the stuff you touched on already. Like I really dug the first movie obviously had supernatural elements in it too, but this one leans way harder into that. And he's, I like Ethan Hawke a lot, so I think that probably carried a lot of weight for me. Going into the second one. And then I'm also I don't want to say a lapsed Christian. I don't really know how I would define myself at this point with definitely not religious, and I hate organized religion, and I would say I dislike and maybe even hate most Christians. But I was raised super Christian. So the entire setting of this one and some of the themes that they touch on and the characters and how, religion was definitely a bad thing for a lot of these characters in this movie. That stuff resonated with me a lot in a way that you could feel that Derrickson and Cargill both, and I think they've talked pretty openly about this, like identify as Christians but have major issues with, like, similar kind of thing. So yeah, I liked that aspect of it a lot too. I was surprised at how much it like leaned into being a sequel as opposed to like so many movies if they made a sequel to the Black Phones, it would be a thing where it's like, all right, Finney and the sister, I forget her name, like they're at a new town. They're trying to forget the grabber and get past it. But oh no, a new killer has shown up and now they have to confront evil yet again. Like the second one opens up and Finney is smoking weed all the time. He's fucked up from the previous movie. His sister, in a similar way, like she's trying to recover, but also not listen to the power that she has. And then it becomes very intertwined with the first movie in a way that I thought was really cool, as opposed to just doing like, here's chapter 2, another one where it's the same sort of template. They were like, no, there's more stuff that we haven't explored in the first movie that we want to now like weave into it, which I dug. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it had a good sense of closure in it too. It was kind of this interesting situation where if they make a third Black Phone, I'll be there. I'll watch it. I'm into it. But at the same time, if they finish it here, like it's a good, solid ending for the franchise, like for the series. Like,
yeah,
it was a big comfort watch for me. I felt like it was just. It's weird to say cozy when it's about like a pedophile who rips people into pieces, but
sure. Like, I know what you mean though. All those cabins in the snow, like
and
yeah, absolutely.
The one thing that I thought was kind of funny, and I was like, okay, like, and it goes into what you're saying with the sequel thing, and I'm not going to spoil it, but this is more for you than the audience. The twist with the mom, and the grabber, when they did that twist, I was like, oh, okay, of course that's what happened. But
yeah,
I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, no, I agree. I pretty much felt, even though this one had different highs and lows for me than the first one had highs and lows, I kind of liked both of them about the same. It was like the highs and lows equaled out to me to the same sort of score or whatever. So I would say, like, if you hated the first one, you probably will not like the second one. But if you liked it even a little bit, you'll get some cool stuff for sure. All right, what else did I see here? Not horror, but I did want to quickly mention my son, Daniel's 9, and he's been asking for a while if he would like Back to the Future. And I did not plan this or even remember that it was happening. But when he was here last week, I was looking at movies for us to go see, and they did the 40th anniversary re-release of it. So I got to see Back to the Future in a theater, which I never was able to. I've seen that movie probably 15 times growing up, probably more than that, honestly. It was a huge movie for me. It stayed consistently great. Like I've always loved it. But it came out, I don't know, 3-4 years before I was born. So it was always a movie that was on TV for me. And then eventually we had the VHS. And yeah, I wondered how it would play for him. Played fucking great. Like it did not, I think there were moments here and there that he was kind of confused by, like, what, I don't understand this reference or whatever else. Cause obviously it starts off in a decade that's 40 years ago. And then it goes back further than that. But all of it, like just the visuals, the vibe of it, like he was super into it. And, for me, thankfully it was, also a thing where I was like, this holds up amazing. Like this, to me, for my money, is one of the best like sci-fi adventure movies of all time. Like it's so good. So that was a really fun experience. Then I watched Bring Her Back, which is one of the most depressing movies I'd watched in a while. Elio, you mentioned that one already. I really liked it as well. I liked Talk to Me more, but I think only because Talk to Me, even though it has darkness in it, it has moments of levity or like tonal sort of stuff, like that sequence where all the kids are basically, there's like a montage of them using the hand, like moments like that kind of help offset the darkness. Bring Her Back does not really have anything to offset it. There's very little. There are moments, but if anything, those moments make how dark it goes and where it goes all the more sort of brutal. And there are also moments and things that they set up or that they appear to be setting up that you think, okay, this will have a payoff later. Or this will, be how this character overcomes this or whatever else. And they either swerve or it's Mr. X. And so it's, it was one of those when I finished watching it, I was like, that was really well made and really good. I'll probably watch it again in 15 years or something. Like, it's not Requiem for a Dream level depressing, but it's dark. And yeah, it's got some pretty, more than once I yelled out, holy shit, which, normally I'm not, somebody who like has outbursts like that, but I'll say one that's kind of a spoiler. The part with Sally Hawkins when the little girl's asleep and she goes in her room, that part shocked me pretty hard. But she is also, I would say, absolutely one of the highlights. Sally Hawkins in it is amazing. She's so good. And I mean, she's good in everything she does, but it's crazy seeing her in this, also knowing she's the mom in Paddington, and then also the lead of Shape of Water. And you look at those three characters, and she's not there's not makeup effects in each one to transform her. It's Sally Hawkins, but through her performance, it's transformative in each situation. So yeah, really liked that in that aspect. And then watched Frankenstein in the theater like 2 days before it hit Netflix, but I still wanted to see it in the theater. So I went and watched it there. And we'll talk about that later. And then Edgar Wright related, but not horror, another movie Daniel had been wanting to see and had asked about. I felt like Scott Pilgrim would probably be okay at this point. I knew there was going to be stuff for him that he wouldn't care about, wouldn't resonate. A lot of the interpersonal relationship shit and people in their 20s. I knew he would probably kind of gloss over and not really care about, which was fine. But he's so into video games, and he's played so many video games at this point, and just kind of through me and osmosis from the stuff I like has picked up on a lot. So I knew right from the beginning. There's like an 8-bit Universal, Studios intro, and then it says "Once Upon a Time in the Land of Canada," and the camera pans down, and as it pans down, we get the Zelda chime of the fairy or whatever from A Link to the Past, and he laughed. He had a huge smile on his face, and I was like, all right, this is gonna work. Like the music stuff, the fights. He's super into Dragon Ball Z right now, so I knew once we got to the vegan base battle and his hair goes Super Saiyan, I knew Daniel would freak out at that, and he did. So it was a ton of fun. He really liked it as well, and it was a good experience. I hadn't watched it in forever. That was a movie for me when it came out. I saw it in the theater 3 times. And I used to watch. It used to be a movie I would put on the Blu-ray at home just kind of whenever. And I didn't burn myself out on it because I didn't get to a point where I disliked it. But I remember specifically hitting a point where I was like, I got to watch a different movie. That's all I'm watching and taking in is this one over and over and over again. So it had been years since I'd watched it, and I wondered if my opinion would change at all. And not really, man. Like there are things that don't resonate as much now that I'm 36. The movie came out 15 years ago now. So it's, there's aspects there, but for the most part, I felt like all the visual, like all the Edgar Wright, stuff, like definitely just plays amazing. Still looks great. The fights, the humor. There's so many. It's one of the things I love about it. There's so many little micro jokes just constantly happening and on all levels. We've talked about and plugged video essays about this, so I won't go super into it, but just even if you look at the party scene where he first meets Ramona and has the whole Pac-Man thing that he fucks up and says, "I'll leave you alone forever now." There's jokes with the lighting. There's jokes with characters in the background that you can barely hear, like feedback, audio cues, like just constantly stuff that it's just so dense with little funny moments, and it feels. We watched it at my friend Sean's house, and we were driving over there. I was like, "Do you know what the movie's about?" And he said no, and I was like, "Okay, so this guy has to defeat her 7 evil exes." Blah. I'm giving him the basic plot of the movie, and yeah, just I forgot where I was going with this. I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, the like just tapestry that they weave with all of those like little micro things going on in the movie. It's just so much fun to watch, and I thought held up really well. Also crazy to watch it 10 or 15 years later, because it's like there's Captain America, there's Captain Marvel, there's like all these, like Kieran Culkin's got an Oscar and an Emmy now, like all these people that the cast was just so stacked back then. So today when we go see Predator Badlands, I'll be wearing my Scott Pilgrim K-pop Demon Hunters mashup t-shirt for nice. Daniel, since he's seen both of them now. So, and then the last thing I wanted to quickly plug, and this is a plug, I don't normally talk about a lot of the comics that I letter, mostly because when I'm lettering stuff, I take in some of what's going on, and I have to have an awareness to a certain level of, what's happening in the scene and what characters are saying and everything else. But it's hard to explain. It's such a different part of my brain than it is when I'm lettering or when I'm reading. And so a lot of times people will pick up something and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I lettered that." And they'll be like, "Is it good?" And I'll be like, "I have no idea." Like I'm not sure. I know it's about this vaguely, but then every once in a while there will be a book where I can tell for a variety of reasons, whether it's just stuff in the writing that I notice, how polished the art is, how editorial is handling edits and revisions and everything else, that it's probably pretty good. And this was one after it came out, the responses and reviews and everything else were very positive, and I was like, okay, I think something. I had my feelings on this were right. It's a book called Murder Podcast. There's a new publisher, Ignition Press, that the studio that I letter with, I'm the lead letter at, and World Design, we do a bunch of their books. And so it's one of a handful I've been lettering. But I wanted to mention on the show because I just finished issue 4 earlier this week, or the first pass of it or whatever. So I think the first at least 2 issues are out, maybe 3. And the premise is pretty basic. Starts off as it being this podcast that it's a true crime type of show, but it puts people into a trance, and then they just start talking with the podcast that they've never heard before. So there's something supernatural going on. And then they just start killing. So if they're in a kitchen and they have a knife nearby, they pick up the knife, they start stabbing their husband, kids, whoever's nearby. And then they either come out of the trance eventually when the podcast is over, or typically if they're out in public, someone stops them, they get hit by a car, shot, whatever. And so we have a group of characters that are true crime podcast fans. It's a group of women. One of the women's wife is the lead detective on the case, so she has some insight there. And then they're kind of trying to figure it out. But it's also very dark, very grisly. Jeremy Hahn wrote it. He's also the creator of The Beauty, which was a horror sort of fantasy comic that was really well received, and I think now is being made into a TV show by Ryan Murphy, I'm pretty sure. And the art's by Mike, I forgot his name, Tisserand. So, it says lettering by And World Design, which is absolutely true. That's the studio, but I lettered this one, so it's my work. And so if you see anything that you hate, I have to take responsibility for that. But it's a cool book, and I've seen enough about it now where I'm like, oh yeah, let me throw this one out there and plug it and tell people to check it out, especially people in the horror / true crime / podcasting Venn diagram. I think it's a fun time, even though it's, again, very dark, very violent. So maybe not one to hand to your mom who loves true crime podcasts necessarily. Take a look at the preview on the website first, but it's a cool book. And that is it for me this week. Nice. So let's get into our main topic, the film Until Dawn. I'm just going to read straight here from Wikipedia. 2025 American horror film adapted from the 2015 video game by PlayStation Studios, and it is set in the same universe while featuring an original standalone story that expands upon the game's mythology. We follow a group of friends who end up in a secluded area embedded with a time loop mechanic. A threat is out to hunt them, where dying restarts the night with a new threat each time, and the only solution is to survive until midnight. This came out earlier this year, back in April, and it had been on my list ever since. I played the game. I think I beat the first game. The studio that did it wasn't PlayStation Studios at first. Supermassive, that's who it was. They ended up doing a bunch of games like this. So they did Until Dawn, they did The Quarry, they did Man of Medan, I think is the name of it. A bunch of
they turned it into an unofficial franchise.
Choose Your Own Adventure. Dark Pictures Anthology or something. Yeah, and they're kind of choose your own adventure in a sense that you control the characters. They're not like Telltale games, if you're familiar with those, where it's a lot of dialogue and only kind of almost closer to a visual novel. There's definitely gameplay in the original Until Dawn, but there's a lot of, it's like playing a slasher movie, and that's kind of how they pitched it. The video game was co-written by Larry Fessenden and I think Graham Resnick. And had, I remember one time one of them, Fessenden or Resnick, posted a picture of the script, and it's just 5,000 pages long or something. It was crazy huge because there's all these branching paths, and you can have characters die and the game continue, and then in your next playthrough, different characters die and it changes the entire story. So the movie is then trying to tap into that, but also if you think about reverse engineering the game into a movie, it doesn't make sense because the game was reverse engineering a movie into a game. So they had to do something different, and that's where they introduced the whole time loop sort of deal. So let's get into just general thoughts first, like we usually do. Elio, you're our guest of honor this week. What did you think overall about Until Dawn?
I liked it. I thought it was solid. I don't think it was revolutionary, but it kind of reminded me as I was watching it of a non-meta Cabin in the Woods. Like the whole, like, every time they die, there's a new thing. It reminded me of, it reminded me of Cabin in the Woods with like that whole, like, oh, they spin the wheel or they select what kind of horror is going to come. This movie did make me feel old. I am not old. I'm 32. But when I watch those actors and I'm like, oh, these are supposed to be like young 20s college people. Yeah. And they're certainly not acting like it. It was I was just like, oh, this is a movie for young people. And I'm not that anymore. But, I thought it was solid. I like Peter Stormare. He's great. But solid watch, fun watch. I almost watched it a second time to get more like intense thoughts about it. But, I think I'll throw it on every Halloween or around Halloween season.
All right, cool. I should have mentioned too, directed by David F. Sandberg, the director behind Lights Out, Annabelle Creation. He did some Shazam movies. And then lots of like horror shorts on YouTube, which we've brought up many times in the past. And then the script is by Gary Dauberman, who's another guy who's mixed in with Sandberg a lot, specifically in the Conjuring universe. He's done a bunch of Conjuring stuff. And Blair Butler, who I know as she was on Attack of the Show, and then kind of transitioned from there into working on like comics and TV shows and movies and stuff. Okay, Andi, what'd you think of Until Dawn?
I thought it was all right. I had problems with the overall story arc of it. I thought that each night on its own worked quite nicely. Nice monsters. David Sandberg knows how to direct a movie and to direct an effect, direct a shocking gag and things like that. But I felt like these nights didn't quite hold together as a whole for me, so I wasn't as invested in the story and in the characters as I think would have been nice. I love the score. Benjamin Wallfish, another guy that worked with Sandberg a lot in the past, and also worked on Predator Badlands. I thought the score was pretty impressive to me, and the movie itself, not a movie that I feel like I will put on every year for Halloween. I think seeing it once might be enough. So it wasn't bad, but also not a strong recommendation from me.
All right, Dave Roberts.
Yeah, I certainly wondered where everything was going when within the first like half an hour everyone was already dead, and I was like, what the fuck? and then it all reset and the whole time loop thing kind of came into play. But I was like, because I think the order of killing, like second on the chopping block, was Odessa Zion, who we've talked about before, because she was in the Hellraiser remake in 2022. And I was like, okay, so you've got an actress who's like pretty well known, and you've killed her off this early. So I thought it was an interesting mechanic to bring in, the whole time loop thing. I've done things the wrong way round here. I've watched the movie and then I've played the game afterwards, and I immediately on booting the game up and reminding myself of the setting, because I remember when the game came out, I saw all of the footage, like the advertising campaigns for it and stuff, the snowy cabin and all that stuff. The end of the movie where it kind of resets and it's like, oh, now we're at a snowy cabin, and oh, the analyst is still whistling in the background. He must still be alive. It kind of made sense to me in my head. I was like, oh shit, okay, so this movie essentially leads into the events of the game. It's absolutely fine. I have no problems with this movie. I think there's a point where, and this is something that I've not played enough of the game to know for sure, But I wonder if when they look into their phone and they see all of these other nights and all of these other deaths that they've recorded on their phone that they don't necessarily remember, I wonder whether they were trying to get as many of the greatest hits of the deaths in the video game into this movie as possible. I don't know if that's the case or not. I kind of like the way that they did it, so that they were like, well, look, we've got all these ideas for how these characters can die, but we can't go through this many nights. So why don't we kind of have a greatest hits on somebody's phone that they've forgotten they have? So that was kind of a cool moment. Special effects were good. I agree with Andy. I thought this was one of the few occasions where the score actually stood out to me enough that I noticed it and made a mental note of it. I thought it really worked very well. I enjoyed when they first arrive at the exhibition center or whatever it was called, visitor center. They kind of drive through that wall of rain, and then like there's a definite cut-off point where it stops raining, and like from that point on, if I was in that movie, I'd be like, nah, fuck this, guys, we're turning around and going back. There's something fucking freaky going on here. But you wouldn't have much of a movie if everyone acted like I would in the face of a creepy thing happening. So the cast are good. I enjoyed all of them. I thought that Ji Young Yu especially was an interesting character and a fun character, because like she starts off with this like bullshit psychic ability thing, and then suddenly it's like, oh no shit, she actually is kind of psychic. Like she's keying into this stuff. Sound design, apart from like the score, the sound design itself, I thought was pretty good. Like the sound of breaking bones and stuff like that was cool. Yeah, it's a good. I don't really have many notes. I thought it was well done. I can't really speak on, because I've not played enough of the video game, as to whether this is a kind of worthy addition to the world. But I dig the fact that they tried to make it work as part of the original game without necessarily stepping on any of its toes. And Peter Stormare's in it, and like, come on, like everyone loves Peter Stormare, right?
I like Peter Stormare, so yeah.
There you go.
And he's in the original. Yeah, he's in the game.
Yeah, he's
the
analyst.
Right. He's like the psychologist or whatever.
Yeah, he just doesn't have a beard in the game because they can shave him digitally.
Yeah,
didn't want to do that for the movie though, did he? No, not my trademark beard.
Okay, so I feel like we've got a nice spread here, because I'm on the other end for sure. But it's also very easy for me to pinpoint what it is I don't like about it, and it's the writing. And I know why I don't like it, and it's because I think Gary Dauberman is a bad writer, and I have for a long time. So again, I'm talking shit. I'm not. I think that demonstrably we can look at the movies he's written and the reception that's happened. It's consistent. They're poorly received pretty much every time. He wrote the first Annabelle, which is fucking awful. He's written a bunch of stuff. I think to me he's... I'm just terrified this dude's going to hear this. Every once in a while it happens. He's kind of, to me, the David S. Goyer of the horror world, where if he touches something and it turns out well, it's in spite of him, not because of him. So there have been moments, for sure, like Annabelle Creation. He wrote that movie, but I like it quite a bit, and I can point to why I do, and it's David F. Sandberg's direction. So going into this one, I was kind of hoping for that again, that the Sandberg stuff would outweigh the Dauberman stuff. Blair Butler, I don't have any experience with her writing. I know based off of the few movies that she's written, they've also been poorly received. So I'm not trying to have that be the metric based off of if someone's a good enough writer or not, because I know that there are so many cooks in the kitchen on movies, and there's so many, even just in comics, the amount of things that I've worked on where the end product was demonstrably and very clearly worse than where it started off, because of people meddling with it. Like it happens all the time. So I'm not trying to like necessarily pin blame on these people's feet and say like it's their fault, but I really hated the writing and the script overall. And so I have to put it at their feet only because they're credited. It doesn't mean I think that it was there from the beginning and there weren't other factors that played into it. It definitely was a situation where there were so many scenes in this movie where I was like, the way that you are behaving is so odd, just as people. and just as reactions and everything else. Inconsistencies. There's a part early on in the movie where they're all talking about like this one character's like obsession with the lead and how he like broke up with her, but she broke up with him, and you know he doesn't want to let her go, all this kind of stuff. Then later in the movie, the new boyfriend references that exact conversation that they all had pretty amicably earlier in the movie, and one of his girlfriend acts like he just said he wants to kill all. She has a reaction to it, but that's so wildly inconsistent with what we've already seen prior in the movie. But it's not a performance thing because it's written. It's the stuff that they're saying that then makes the performances worse. So it was a lot of stuff like that for me in those interactions that made it a tough watch for me overall, because there's always going to be script and there's always going to be acting to go off of what, in my opinion, was a bad script. So it was a kind of a grind for me, but the Sandbergian elements when they did happen were highlights. I mean, this is very juvenile, but I really liked the sequences where people were blowing up, because of the water. Like it's on its face a pretty lazy and stupid writing thing to be like the water kills them and they just keep drinking water. But there was a lot of cool practical stuff that then happened because of that. And that was the case with a lot of other moments in the movie too. I also really liked that shot where they're trying to leave and there's a giant troll, which I don't think I'm trying to remember if that ever paid off or they ever went back to that. But there were moments here or there in the movie that I definitely liked the visual of it. I said at the beginning, too, like, it's a tough, weird thing, because if you've played the game, you know that the game is trying to replicate the feelings you get from watching a slasher movie. So reverse engineering that into a movie adaptation would be stupid, or not be stupid. It would just be kind of like you're just making you're making a version of the game that is less novel because there's no interactivity to it. It's just a straight shot, and that's the movie that you're going to get. So I understand why they pivoted and said, like, let's do something else that then can bring in these other elements. But at times I felt like it was just so convoluted and muddied because of what they were trying to do that I don't know, it became hard to figure out, like, is there actually a path here? Like, is there actually a way to quote unquote win this? Like, I got the cabin in the woods stuff for sure. I got the same vibes. I mean, like, I agree. I think that it doesn't have any of the meta stuff, which to me then makes it kind of like a less interesting version of Cabin in the Woods, because that was one of its strengths for me, for sure, was all of the meta sort of commentary and everything else. But yeah, it was, again, it was a situation where I'm like, I already knew I didn't like Doberman's writing. I mean, we talked about It Chapter 2 earlier. Like, this dude co-wrote It Chapter 1. And then it's my David S. Goyer theory here. He co-wrote it with two other people, and I think it succeeded despite him, not because of him. Because then who wrote It Chapter 2? Doberman by himself. Like, it anytime he's on his own, it's yeah. Anyway, so I'm not trying to shit on him completely. I'm sure he's a nice dude. I'm sure he's great to work with. He's clearly worked with a bunch of directors, and he's very plugged into this universe. But his stuff for me falls flat pretty much every time, and this was no exception. But there was definitely some Sandberg stuff sprinkled throughout that I really liked. I also had that definite age gap feeling at times where I didn't really like or care about any of the characters. I think part of it was that, where I was just like, they all seem very stupid, and I think maybe they're supposed to be to a certain degree, but there was that element, which, you know, if you're into the movie and having fun with it, then that can very easily turn into like, oh, okay, perfect, because I'm going to see them die over and over again. So there's that, you know, that fun sort of element to it as well. It's weird. I can absolutely see both reactions to something like this. Like, I can see people that are really into it because of the novelty of the mechanic. Maybe not the novelty of the mechanic, the novelty of bringing in different kinds of horror, because there's no novelty in the mechanic. They even make a joke about it in the movie that it's not new. But there's that fun sort of like, we get a slasher thing, we get a monster thing, we get a Wendigo, we get a exploding water, we get a possession thing. But yeah, it was always just kind of like, I felt in every way that I didn't like it, I could trace back to the script. Like, it was like, this for me suffers because ultimately at its foundation, the writing's just not good, and there's not enough of a a foundational thing here for everybody else to shine off of. They have to kind of work past it or work around it. But yeah, that's also me bringing my own previous bias to the table with good old Gary. And Gary, if you're listening, I'm sorry, man. I'm sure you're a super nice guy. It's nothing personal. I just can't get into your movies.
I guess the reason that I enjoyed it was because in spite of whatever bad writing there might have been, and maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention, I was just there to see people blowing up and getting their heads crushed and shit. Like the tone is set so early in terms of what you get from this movie that you don't really need to, and I completely acknowledge some of the tonal changes that they have in conversation of the same subject between the beginning and the middle of the movie. But, it's kind of like London buses, like you don't worry if you haven't got one yet because they'll be free in a minute. And like that, some of those kills come so quick and so fast that you've not got time to breathe. So, like the plot doesn't necessarily hang together as one of the best examples of this kind of movie that has ever been made. But I think that probably what it does and does well is it continues to deliver on the gore and killing and the variety of different ways that people are killed. I think my main hang-up from the film was the fact that normally when a movie like this is... when you start a movie like this and it starts off with a character who then we're not following as the main character, in this case Melanie, there's kind of this unwritten understanding that at some point there's going to be a rescue attempt made for that character, and that character there will be a chance that they can be rescued. Not that they always are. There are definitely times where that character ends up in the mud, 6 feet in the mud. But there's this time out, it's like the first time that we actually see her, she's already a Wendigo, and it's like, well, there's nothing we can do. There's literally nothing we can do for Melanie. The whole point of this movie, the whole reason that these people are on the road trying to save her, and so her death at her own sister's hands feels really quite empty and emotionally for Clover. And my God, what a name for a main character. Naming her after a cow. Okay. It felt very emotionally empty, that whole scene with her sister where she puts her down. And it didn't have to feel that way. Like they could have perhaps done something a little differently where there would be some real kind of emotional impact to what Clover ends up having to do to her sister and for her sister. It just felt like it was completely missing. I don't know if that was a miscue or if it was on purpose, but I don't know. Maybe my expectations of what should happen when they introduce a character like Melanie at the beginning of the movie need to be re-examined rather than criticizing films for not following that template. I don't know. Anyone else have that same problem? Like, was it just me?
No, I think overall the writing was weak. I think when you're talking about the script or just like there's just so many inconsistencies where it's really like the main appeal of watching it for me was watching, how are they going to kill him now? What's the cool kill they're going to do? Like the water kill's the best kill. It is. It's without a doubt. They started popping and I was like cheering. I thought it was so funny. Yeah. But like it does come like, I can't always articulate what it is about something I don't like, but the second you say that it's the script, it makes total sense because even with the writing of that boyfriend character who's like the outlier to the group, he's new to the group, I noticed the same thing where it's like, he had this random line in the middle of the movie and the reaction makes no sense to it. It's just like they just decided like, okay, now this guy's got to be like the antagonist bad guy that we want to see die. And it's not like, it's just, he's a jerk. He doesn't earn that. Even with the kill for Clover's sister, like they put in this emotional moment, but Dave, you nail it. There's like no emotional backing into it. Like it's not earned at all. So even at the end when she dies, you're like, okay, let's move on and keep going.
Yeah.
And I don't want to set the tone too bad. I mean, I'm bagging on the writing, and it is definitely one of those things where I get to a point with it, even with my own argument, where I'm like, this is definitely a thing that like annoyed me and dug into me in a way that it was hard for me to let go of it. But I have to get to a certain point where I'm like, I have to let go of this, because that's not my expectations aren't high to begin with, and so I need to kind of let go. But I think when it then infects the like performances and other aspects, it's hard to not just keep thinking about like, oh my gosh, like why did they do it this way or whatever. But then, like you guys have already said, when those moments do happen of kills or whatever else, like that's one thing that I applaud them for doing. It would have been, especially it being a Sony like PlayStation Studios type movie, it would have been an easy thing for the studio, whether it's PlayStation or whoever actually put the movie out. I forget now off the top of my head who it is.
Screen Gems were involved in the production. Who did release? Hang on.
Okay.
Sony Pictures.
Sony. Okay,
and
that
Screen
makes sense.
Gems, yeah.
It would be, I could very much see them being like, wait, let's make this PG-13. Let's get as many teens into the theater as we can or whatever else. And to their credit, like it seems like from the beginning they were like, we're making an R-rated horror movie, and we're going to lean into that, and there's going to be practical effects, which makes sense. It tracks with Sandberg and how he does stuff. I think that's a part of it too. It's a weird combination of my distaste for Gary Dauberman's writing and then my love of Sandberg's sensibilities. And in a movie like Annabelle, whatever the fuck it's called, the second one that David F. Sandberg did, there's good examples of both things happening there, to where there will be little sequences that feel like Sandberg short films that he does on his YouTube channel. Pony Smasher, I think is the name of it, or of his handle on YouTube, where you're seeing like really inventive, cool, smart ideas and scares and and they're usually 2 minutes or less. Like they're usually very short little micro horror movies. I mean, if you've seen the original Lights Out short that they then built the movie around, like that's a perfect example of, he's capturing something so cool and effective in such a short amount of time. And so I think like in that Annabelle movie, I could see his fingerprints all over it, even though underneath all of it, we're dealing with, a pretty boilerplate standard kind of like Conjuring spinoff sequel sort of thing. And with this one, I think the balance wasn't as equal for me. Like I wanted more Sandberg to show up, even though he does for sure. It's also probably not the biggest budget he's had, but I would imagine the biggest budget he's had for a horror movie. I didn't actually look that up. Well, maybe not. It cost $15 million, so what didn't cost that much, relatively speaking. He had just gotten done making 2 Shazam movies, which were huge productions with much higher budgets, I'm sure, and also tonally way different as well. So I think there was also some of my expectations going in and being excited about this as like, all right, Sandberg's back in the horror world and he's doing a very much an R-rated horror thing. So that probably affected it too. I would imagine, much like a lot of other movies for me, it would be something that a second watch, I would have a much more, kind of maybe more fair assessment to where preconceived notions and also I don't know.
Also, like, should you have to watch a movie more than once to appreciate it? Like,
I won't know for this one because I'm not going to watch it again.
No. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't watch a movie again and gain a further appreciation of it. But I think a movie's primary goal should be the first time you see it, it should entertain you and not annoy you for random reasons. Well, not random reasons, very good reasons. A couple of things I wanted to touch on. The first one being there was one moment of writing in this movie that I did appreciate, and it was so simple that it could have been something that was ad-libbed by either the director or the actors. I don't know, but it's the moment where Nina, Odessa Zion's character, opens what were the original front doors to the property, and she looks down that creepy hallway, and then she very carefully and quietly closes the doors, turns around and says, "Nope." I just, that was me inserted into a horror movie. And I appreciate when a horror movie does just call out such an obvious trope and they're just like, we're just going to acknowledge what everyone in the theatre is thinking right now, which is that is a fucking terrible idea. The turnaround being that was actually how they ended up escaping in the end. The other thing regarding the way that they marketed the movie and the fact that it was so gory and it was quite clearly, again, American ratings, not sure about them. Is it R-rated, would this have been, I guess?
Yeah, it was.
I don't think that is as massive of a brave decision as some people might, and my reason for that is that this is a movie that is based on a video game that came out 10 years previously. So the minimum age of people playing Until Dawn in 2015 when it launched would have been, conservatively speaking, 13, 14 years old. So 10 years later, you're talking about people in their early 20s. So they can all go and watch an R-rated movie with no problem, especially a movie that is based on a game that they played when they were younger and may have creeped them the fuck out.
So to clarify, I don't think it's brave. I think it's more that they could have made more money probably if they would have made it. That's usually the
what
studio's
I kind of meant, like financially bold of them to go for an R-rated rather than a PG.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that is probably where they're going. Also, like, and far be it from me to praise Sony where it comes to making decisions in the cinema realm, because as K-pop Demon Hunters has proven in recent years, they are not good at making decisions. But I think in this case, the fact that they did actually back the writers and the director and everyone else involved in creative and allowed this movie to go out as an R, when many studios, including Sony before, have interfered with the filmmaking process so that they can get a movie released at a lower age rating to make more money. I think that there is a point at which a movie will actually make less money if you put it out on a lower rating, because people are going to see that rating and be like, I'm going to avoid it. It's not going to be bloody enough. It's not going to be true enough to whatever it is, especially with like video game and with adaptations of other media.
We're seeing it right now with the Predator movie. I've seen so much shit online from people
which is dumb.
It is dumb. When I was 14, I don't remember how old I was exactly, 13 or 14 when Alien vs. Predator came out. And I was, at that age especially, like somebody was like, you're going to combine these two movies and make it PG-13? I didn't want to see it because of that, because I was like, it should be R, blah, blah, blah. Now that I'm 36, I care significantly less. But also, it makes sense that this new one is like, we don't have to make it R. We can do exactly the stuff we want to do, and there's no, red human blood in it. So it's still the thing that we want to do. I think people also rail against it when it's that, where they feel like they're getting like a neutered, censored kind of version of the movie. But anyway,
I literally said exactly the same thing that you said before we started recording, and I was talking to Andi about this, and he said there's no human blood in it, and I was like, yeah, there's no red blood. There's no red blood. It's all green and white, and and that's true. Like, you can get away with a lot more when you're decapitated. Like, this is the lesson that everybody learned from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. If you're going to have a bunch of enemies that you're going to be slashing with swords and stuff, it's easier to get away with it if they're made of clay or putty, or
if sparks come out.
Just make the enemies non-human, and then apparently violence is perfectly acceptable, and you can show your 12-year-old. And I'm not against it. I think that's absolutely spot on. We'll talk more about Predator next week, because we did say we would. But there's a balancing act between getting more people through the gates because you've got a lower age rating, and potentially turning people off by having that lower age rating, because it can be an indicator of somebody's vision, not to use flowery fucking poncy filmmaking words like this is, I've got the "this is cinema" meme ready, queued up and ready to go. But like, somebody has a vision of a movie and it is like blood, guts, gore, people exploding after drinking out of the kitchen tap, which, I mean, that's just a good PSA. Do not drink water out of the bathroom tap. That's just not right. Certainly in the UK, where we store all of our water in the loft, that's just terrible. So yeah, like I think that the decision to stick with a harder rating and allow all of the extra gore, certainly in the light of the writing not being the best, it helped me to enjoy the movie more. So yeah, I think they may have made the right decision on this occasion, and then 10 years later they made a terrible one, and everyone's laughing at them for it. But yeah, that was my point. Anyway, sorry, derailed everything now.
No, you're good. Andi, we've been talking. I don't know if you have anything to throw, but I want to make sure you have a moment in case you've been waiting to jump in.
One thing that I would like to add, just from a personal perspective, oftentimes I have problems with time loop movies because I get bored by the repetitiveness, seeing the protagonist going the same thing over and over and over again. I just want to skip ahead, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I appreciate a time loop movie that does it a little bit differently, but with this one, I think that was kind of a bit of a missing element to me, that it's a time loop movie, but every night is completely different. So the characters never encounter something that they have encountered before, which was maybe one of the elements that didn't really let me connect with the overall story, because it felt like vignettes chopped together, but I didn't really see the through line through the whole thing from beginning to end, and that's where the movie kind of lost me.
I did like the fact that every time they, using the video game term here, because why not, it's a video game movie, every time they respawned, because that's what I think this time loop mechanic essentially is doing. It's respawning the characters. It's a new playthrough through video game eyes. They carried a little bit of battle damage from the last time that they were killed. Like the first time that the time loop restarts, you've got the ex-boyfriend of Clover. He's got like a dark ring around his right eye where he got a piece of chair leg stuck through it. There's is it Megan, the psychic character? Her face was all kind of like, I don't know if it was all bruised up, but she had marking all over her face where it had been repeatedly rammed into the floor. And I think the ex-boyfriend also had some blood staining on his jacket at the beginning of the second loop as well. So I completely agree with what you're saying, Andy, because the whole idea of time loop is sometimes that you show that your characters are capable of learning what they did wrong and taking advantage and learning from the situation. But I wonder if maybe the time loop in this particular situation was more of a kind of video game style respawn of the characters than a time loop as intended by other movies. I don't know.
Which makes me realize, because when I played the game, and you all know I'm not a huge gamer, I played the Commodore 64 and then nothing until my wife set me in front of a PlayStation 4, which was
hell of a
lot to take in. But Until Dawn was one of the
like
games that we then played together, and which was very frustrating to me. One, it has a lot of quick time events, and if you don't know, just if you have to think where the button is, like I had to in that situation because I don't have the muscle memory. I did not grow up with these controllers. It's very frustrating. And then what later on I realized what was the real frustrating moment for me was when you didn't press the button in time, the game went on. You don't have the opportunity to learn and try again until you master that moment, and then you can go on in that game. And in that sense, the movie more or less does the same thing. The characters reset, but they cannot really learn because they don't encounter the same moment as the night before. So my frustration was very well adapted from the game to the movie in that sense.
Oh, perfect movie then. Like,
yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing too, because like there were elements that they added in the whole mechanic of it that I liked, like when they first set up that opening, or not opening moment, but when they get to the house and there's the different signatures in the book and they're like deteriorating over time. They set up some rules that I thought were really cool, but then they kind of just deviate from them. And then there's also moments, if I remember correctly, that they realize they don't remember loops that they had, or there was stuff that happened that they don't have memories of or whatever else. And then that's even before we introduced this whole like mining town disaster backstory. There's just so much that, it's a strange sort of adaptation that like really nails aspects of it, especially from like a gaming perspective. But then are just so wildly. They do bring in the Wendigo thing. Like that is something that is part of the original game, is that there's one threat. There's not multiple versions of horror tropes or whatever. And I haven't played it since it came out, but I remember that the Wendigo thing is, I think, pretty, like, that's the thing. Like, that's the main, which I remember at the time thinking, like, this makes sense. Larry Fessenden made a movie called fucking Wendigo, so he's into this aspect of it. And I also know that probably, not probably, I know that influenced some of my takes with it, because I really like Fessenden a lot. I like his sensibilities. I liked his writing in that. There was a spinoff of the first Until Dawn game that I played, because back then I had a PlayStation VR, and they did like an original, I think it was called Rush of Blood, that was like an on-rails, like carnival house shooter, but it had like a master of ceremonies, like carnival barker guy that was voiced and played by Larry Fessenden. So those games, that game in particular, had very much like an indie horror sort of through line to it. If you knew, and for most people playing those games, they had no idea who Larry Fessenden was, or the stuff he had made. He's not a mainstream guy, but for horror fans, it was definitely like this cool. Graham Resnick as well. Tales from Beyond the Pale, like all that kind of stuff that they were pulling from, that we've talked about in the past on the show. So I know that was part of it for me too. But yeah, it's odd. Like, I don't know. Part of me was like, would it have been better if they would have just made an adaptation of the story, of the, like, I don't know if there's a main ending. Usually games like that, there's like multiple endings, and there's like endings. A canon one. Yeah. I don't know if that would have been more effective. I mean, the original game also was, they established this sort of thing that they continued with, at least for a few of them. I don't know if they still do, of having real, like, Hollywood actors. I don't say real, that's awful. Having Hollywood actors, video game actors are real actors too. Having Hollywood actors like Hayden Panettiere as the lead in the original Until Dawn game.
In there.
Rami Malek's in it, yeah, before he blew up. Yeah. So there's definitely a cinematic element that they've added in, that weirdly with this, it's like a bunch of not unknowns, but newer actors that you haven't necessarily seen in a ton of stuff. Whereas the games usually have an element of, you recognize, you're like, oh, I know that person from this thing, or I've seen them before. And it adds another layer of it being more of a theatrical kind of experience, at times more so than like a video game where it's all based off around gameplay or skill level or whatever else that, video games might normally lean into. I don't know. I thought about that a bunch as I was watching it. It was just like, what is the move here to adapt this like in a way that's the most efficient? Like, I don't think this was the way, but it's not a bad idea. Like I think the execution was sloppy, but I like the idea of, and they pull, I want to say that the hourglass as a motif is in the game. I couldn't remember, but I think it's on the cover.
It's literally the cover of the game. Yeah. It's a skull pouring sand into the bottom half of an hourglass.
Is there an hourglass in the game? That's what I couldn't remember.
I don't remember seeing one.
So maybe it was just something they took from, but that's obviously very present in the movie. Like, there's an actual hourglass you see turning, and
like I think the idea, the reason that the hourglass was on the front of the game was because the idea was to survive until dawn, and so it was like a visual indicator of a timer, like, time is running out, and the skull and everything being linked with death. But no, I feel like the totems were more of a standout feature of the original game than hourglasses were, or anything like that.
Yeah, I forgot about the totems. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, I ignored the first totem completely and ended up breaking my back in the opening. Oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah, I did not equip myself well.
It's interesting because, like, I remember I don't know if they had this in the first version of the game. I think that they did like I don't know if it was an HD. Well, they all would have been HD. I don't know if it was like a remaster or something, or maybe just an update. But they added something later. It might have even been in subsequent games, where it was like another person that you're doing it with could have another controller and like vote for They continued to kind of add on to the social aspect of it, which again is not cinematic. Like, that's not the experience you're going to have watching a linear movie. So I could see absolutely how it was a challenge to try to adapt the the tone of the movie. The execution for me didn't work great, but I do applaud and love the idea of doing stuff like this with franchises, like, and especially with Sony's had a kind of rough track record with movies so far in their PlayStation Studios with their film output anyway. And we've seen like two different, like I didn't watch the Uncharted movie, but I saw enough of the trailers to know like I'm not going to watch this. This was not the way to do it. I had played the games and saw how cinematic they are, and then what they tried to do, I could just tell like this is not going to be for me.
But
but it's interesting. Yeah,
I'd say the biggest problem with the Uncharted movie is that it's called Uncharted.
Exactly.
Like if it's in its own right, it is a perfectly fine, serviceable, and fun adventure movie taking after the likes of Indiana Jones and Uncharted and Tomb Raider. The problem is that it doesn't really deliver much, if any, of what you expect from an Uncharted game and translate it into a movie. Like, I fucking love the most of the actors that were involved in that project. I think are great actors. But if you're going to cast Nathan Drake and the decision you make is Tom Holland, I'm sorry, but you've missed the point somewhere along the line. Like,
it's pretty rough.
Nathan Fillion's right fucking there, guys. Like,
yeah,
I'm just saying.
They did that fan film even too. Yeah, and it's with Holland too. It's like he is old enough to be Drake maybe in the first one, but unfortunately, I love Tom Holland. He doesn't look like an older guy. Like he has a young look that he's going to carry for a while.
Yeah, he will forever be a teenager.
So it made perfect sense. When I saw that casting at the time, I remember being like, okay, cool. So like I think in the third one, it might even be earlier than that. You start playing those sequences with him and his brother when they're kids. And I was like, oh, he must be playing young Nathan Drake. I was like, no, he's playing the late 20s, early 30s versions. I looked it up too. So there was Uncharted. I forgot they did a Gran Turismo movie, which I think
did okay.
Kind of received okay. I don't think people hated it or anything.
I don't know financially it did that well, but critically it did all right.
Which is another odd movie to adapt, because it's a thing where it's like you have to make an entire angle. The game isn't going to give it to you. The game is racing.
So wasn't it based on a true story?
It is based on
it is.
Yeah. So Gran Turismo used to have, I think they still do, something called Gran Turismo Academy, where when they released the game especially, you could do a hot lap in a Nissan GTR or something. And if you did well enough, you would be invited to try out for potentially racing in real life. And I think, generally speaking, it's based around that idea. I've not seen the movie myself, but I'm aware that the main character is a kid that plays video games and wants to be a racing driver, and his father is like, no, do you know how expensive that shit is? That's as much as I know about the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing a character who is named after the real guy, so like it definitely
there you go.
Took that. It's just a strange. They've done better in TV, so they did The Last of Us. Obviously, that's done well. And then I haven't watched the Twisted Metal show because it's on fucking Peacock or something. It's on something I never had, but I hear it's good too. So it's interesting to see how like the stuff that they have done consistently in movies. It's been odd things to adapt, or at least the even if it wasn't an odd thing to adapt, their approach has been odd in how they did it, and it's had varying, I think, results. But
do you know, I think one of not to labour the point out too much, but I think the problem for PlayStation Studios is that they think that everyone else thinks that when you have a studio which is like a franchise style thing, like Marvel, for example, that every movie has to interlink with every other movie and it all has to be part of this big universe. And the problem for PlayStation Studios is they're not doing that. They're making movies that are standalone and their own thing, and they're not even all aiming at the same demographic. They're aiming all over the place. Most of the people that play Gran Turismo are not hardcore sim racers, but they're not the same people that then go off and play Uncharted. Or, it's like the whole Venn diagram, and you're trying to pinpoint that one intersecting part where everyone plays all of these games, and it just doesn't really happen. So PlayStation basically the reason that it's all very weird and wacky is just because they're not trying to make everything work together. They're just their remit is basically, here's a game that has potential to be a movie. Let's try and make a movie from it. And they're not worrying about linking it in with everything else. So much as I would love to see a Gran Turismo movie where there was a time loop mechanic and everyone died at the end of the race and they had to find a way to somehow win the race or not die.
Every time they do a lap, they're back in lap 1. They can't get out of it. They're just
and they
the
have
time
to,
loop is 1 lap.
And they have to win the race because the prize is this priceless artifact, which is somehow related to Drake's mission to find the Americas. It's all over the fucking shop.
I hope that I know right now they're doing, Zach Kreger is doing a new Resident Evil movie. They're filming that right now. That's like their next film thing. And then they keep talking about a Horizon Zero Dawn movie, but I don't think anyone's been attached, or I think it's just kind of still in development or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting to see how and you can tell that they're definitely leaning into wanting it to be a brand. Like their production logo at the beginning of the movie, of Until Dawn at least,
it's definitely got the Marvel flavor.
Here's all our
to it.
characters.
Yeah.
Here are all these things you can see movies of. Hopefully, like they're really trying to push that. Which, again, I really like seeing adaptations that aren't just let's just make a movie version of and even something like The Last of Us, which I like a lot. I like the show quite a bit. But usually, my favorite moments in the show are moments where they deviate or where they do stuff that's very much suited for the medium, as opposed to trying to make something from the game work in a medium that it doesn't necessarily translate well to.
You're going to absolutely love the new Mass Effect movie then, my friend.
Oh, I just read about that. It's like, set. So I like stuff like that, where it's like, let's find the essence of it, which I definitely think that they were trying to do here, and at times absolutely succeeded. At times for me didn't, kind of fell flat. But I'm much more interested in seeing an approach to an adaptation like that, as opposed to, I mean, Marvel has kind of been doing it the whole time, where it's like we're remixing elements of different stories, but Iron Man 2 might have parts of the Demon in a Bottle storyline where he's dealing with alcoholism, but that's not the whole movie. We're pulling from that. We're also pulling from Extremis in the third movie. We're pulling from they're taking the essence of some of these ideas, as opposed to just trying to do one-to-one adaptations. So I like that aspect. Just don't let Gary Dauberman write anymore for me. Do we have any other big thoughts here before we move into double feature picks?
Not for me.
Resounding silence. All right, let's do double feature picks. Andi, what do you got this week for us?
You guys already mentioned Cabin in the Woods a couple of times. That was my first pick. So it might possibly be your picks as well. I have some backups, but my first pick is Cabin in the Woods.
Do your backups too. Do your backups too. I want to hear what your other ones are.
Lights Out as another David Sandberg teen horror movie, which I enjoyed more than Until Dawn, but it has that David Sandberg moment to it. And the third one is more a play on the title, From Dusk Till Dawn. Doesn't really fit movie-wise that much, but the title is kind of the same.
There you go. All right. I don't want to put Elio on the spot yet in case he doesn't have one and he's scrambling like I am. So, Dave, what you got?
What makes you think I'm not scrambling on the spot? Because I always have. No, I went for House of a Thousand Corpses, and purely because of the whole subterranean nature of the house that they were in. It just kind of
it's Dr. Satan, right? And House of a Thousand Corpses?
I think so.
Yeah, Dr. Satan.
Dude, I just now am realizing why. I mentioned my kid loves Dragon Ball right now, and he's literally in the other room watching Dragon Ball Super right now. He's almost done with it. And I have wondered until this moment why every time Mr. Satan has come up, I've called that motherfucker Dr. Satan. I've never gotten it right, and it just dawned on me that's why. It's because it is House of a Thousand Corpses. Anyway, sorry.
No. I mean, that's pretty much it. The only thing I did want to mention, because it suddenly popped into my head, I am, for some reason, a fan of whenever a movie or a TV show will visit or talk about or invent a new kind of like disaster where there was a town and suddenly that town doesn't exist anymore. Like the whole concept of ghost towns and towns that were swallowed up by Mother Nature. It fascinates me to the point that I will watch YouTube videos where people will go and visit like Japanese towns that are overgrown and reclaimed by nature and things like that. It's just it's really creepy, but it's also quite what's the word? Because they're all completely deserted. It's kind of relaxing in a very strange way.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's tranquil, and like I was watching something yesterday. It's a guy who was trying to get from Utah to Area 51 in a Chinese knockoff mini Jeep, which is like a kid's toy Jeep. It's one of those ones where your kids sit in and it's got an electric motor. But he put a 2-stroke Honda Super Cub motor in his and drove like 1,000 miles or something. And he stops off at these towns that are old, like mining towns in the middle of Utah or whatever. And it's literally like half of a house and maybe like a traction engine or something that was used to pull people up out of the mines. And like the house looks like it was like refurbished in like the 60s or something. And to see a house that was being used in the 60s and then just how quickly the whole thing fell apart and has become... It looks as old as like antiquity itself. Like it's been there forever like that. It was never lived in. You can't imagine it being a full-formed house with people living in it and that kitchen actually being used to make food and stuff. But yeah, it always fascinates me. So yeah, the whole subterranean plot of this movie and the fact that it stems from a mining disaster. It was an entire town that got swallowed up, and they had like cars that were kind of half sticking out of the ground with vines wrapped around them and stuff. That was fascinating to me, but it did remind me a little bit, even though there is no subterranean lost town storyline in House of a Thousand Corpses. It did definitely remind me of that, and the whole digging too deep and too far under the town.
Nice. Okay. You know what? I'm going to go with Dave. You mentioned this at the top of the segment, and I totally agree. I think he's definitely one of our character actors that a lot of times we don't give enough credit to. Peter Stormare is great. You could pick. I could go in two wildly different directions here to make it a Peter Stormare double feature. I think he's a great villain in Fargo. There's something so weird about that dude and how unlike he is to Steve Buscemi's character, even though they're partnered up. And it's also a snowy setting, blah, 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 blah. But I'm not going to pick that. I'm going to pick Constantine, a movie that I will pick as a double feature whenever I can.
I was hoping so.
And he plays literal Satan and doesn't have a ton of scenes in the movie. Honestly, might even just be at the end. I haven't watched it in a while. I don't even remember if he shows up before that. But great moment there. And yeah, he's great in the Until Dawn game too. Like when you have those moments with him, cause I think in the game too, isn't it like he's talking to you, like the player? I don't know that it's super meta. I don't think he's like, you're holding a controller, but like he's breaking the fourth wall, and those scenes, at least that from my memory, are different than the rest of the game. Cause you're like in his office. I don't totally remember.
I've not got far enough to know.
I was going to say, from what I remember, he gives like a psych eval of you as you're doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's which is a cool, like, I remember at the time thinking like, this is interesting and like definitely adds some like fun, like balance to the pacing of the game in terms of how you're intercutting with that. That was also a game too that I played quite a bit and liked, but I didn't play it nearly as much as they had set up for me to play it. Cause you can tell as you're going through that they're giving you like markers and ways to then help you for your next playthrough, like deviate from it and everything else. So I would imagine I saw, I don't know, and if I think I finished one run of the game, so I would imagine I probably saw like a fifth of the amount of probably less than that of the amount of writing and stuff that's in the game. And then I remember playing other games in the series and always kind of having the same reaction, which was like, yeah, this is cool, but it's Until Dawn on a submarine, or it's Until Dawn here. Like they kind of stuck to that template.
I would genuinely love to know what not shooting or shooting the squirrel at the beginning of the game makes, what change that makes.
What butterfly effect that has.
What butterfly effect that makes. Because it told me that not shooting it had caused a butterfly effect moment. And I was like, I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
The squirrel
Peter
will come back.
Stormare was... Yeah, it is the Wendigo. If only Peter Stormare was in the film The Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher, I would have picked that. But
oh man, it's an unofficial part of the dark cinema universe. We just didn't know it until now.
It does have that kind of vibe to it when you watch the movie for sure. So cool. All right, listeners, let us know what you thought of Until Dawn if you watched it this year.
Yeah, wait a second. It's skipping me over.
Shit, sorry. No, I did not mean to. I'm sorry.
My goodness.
I was intentionally... I'm so used to having... Yeah, oh man, I'm embarrassed.
Eerie
Elio,
International
please.
just lost a listener.
All listeners except for Elio, let us know what you thought of the movie. Elio, I'm so sorry. What's your double feature pick?
My double feature pick is actually a movie that was covered by your podcast. The Wrong Turn reboot remake that came out like a handful of years ago.
Yeah.
I thought weird foresty underground cabin movie, but more so that it took a trope that we were used to and put it on its head a little bit and subverted it. So I thought it'd be a nice, interesting watch.
Yeah, that's a great double feature pick. That's exactly the kind of thing I was thinking about earlier with the adaptation, trying to capture part of the core without just adapting it again. And in that case, it's weird because they're adapting their own movies in the same screenwriter too. But yeah, fantastic pick. And called the same thing, I think, right? It was just Wrong Turn.
Yeah, I think it was just Wrong Turn.
Cool. Elio, I'm so sorry again for skipping over you.
Canceled.
Let us know where are you comfortable throwing out there for people to follow you on, if anywhere. What do you want to plug?
I'll do this for my bandmates because if I don't promote our bands, they're going to get mad at me. Let's see. Okay. So follow Knife Throat on Instagram. It's Knife Throat NY. We post all of our shows there. All our music is there. Don't use Spotify. They're evil. You can listen to us on Apple Music or Bandcamp and all of that stuff. God's Favorite you can find at God's Favorite HC on Instagram. We have we have 2 shows coming up at the end of the year, and then we're kind of taking it easy. So we should have some new music out by next year. And then we're in our 30s, which is my joke band. We have music coming out. That is we're in our 30s on Instagram. Besides that, I guess you can follow me. It's funny, David, you were talking about how you like reading my Letterboxd reviews. I kind of do that just because I think it would be very interesting that once I die, there will just be a long history of my random thoughts on books and movies. So you can follow me on Letterboxd at Evezza, Evezza, and then Goodreads is, let's see. I don't even know how to use this website. Okay, hold on. You know what? I can't figure out how to find out what my Goodreads user is, so don't even worry about that.
We'll link it in the show notes. We post the episode.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool.
Well, yeah, that's about it. I mean, keep listening to emails. I'm going to keep sending them once I get caught up with these episodes, so we'll see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we would love to have you back on anytime you want to come on. Just let us know. We'll figure it out. And especially if you have a movie you watch and really like, or just want to watch, whatever, let us know. We'd love to have you back on. This was awesome. So thank you for coming on. Listeners, as we mentioned before, long form thoughts, blah, 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 eerieinternational@gmail.com if you want to send us anything there. Follow Elio on Letterboxd, follow his bands, go on Bandcamp, buy their stuff, whatever you can do to support indie music is always a thumbs up, I think, from all of us on this podcast. So make sure you do that. In the meantime, stay safe out there, keep watching horror movies, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.